So we've got two doozies coming up, two doozies of stories. This one coming up is the first one, and it's coincide with WB here in a minute. And Dad says Zaslav just debuted the new AEW wrestling show this past Saturday on TNT. Really? So I know Tony Khan was a so this guy's trying to double. He has so many different things going. Now I'm a WWF kind of guy, WWE kind of guy. I tune into AEW and eh, I mean I don't follow it religiously. There are some people out there. I mean, it's got some of the biggest names in the business, right? So yeah, that's fascinating. I might have to go back and actually start watching that now, just because. So as we were just talking about, Zaslav needs burning money, but this in itself is not their only problem with streaming because they are in serious, serious trouble. The Flash, the movie that just came out this last week. Now, this is a big article, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. So, guys, don't worry about it. I just want you to get the gist of it. Okay. So, this is from Variety, an exclusive. Okay. The Flash box office disaster exposes DC's $1.1 billion problem from Warner Brothers. Okay. In case you haven't noticed, there are going to be spoilers for The Flash here. Excuse me. In the climax of The Flash, Barry Allen watches helplessly as his timeline hopping escapades cause several superhero universes to careen into each other and become obliterated in the process. Ironically, Warner Brothers is almost facing an identical dilemma, and the stakes could be nearly as big. Excuse me. Flash is the second of the four mega big budgeted DC adaptations in the studios to be set released, with Shazam Fury of the Gods coming out in March and followed by Blue Beetle. And then, of course, we have Aquaman at the end of the year. Yet these movies were conceived and greenlit by an executive team that have all but departed the studio, and in their place, new DC's chiefs James Gunn and Peter Safran have announced they will be rebooting Superman with Superman Legacy starting in 2025. I want you to keep something in mind, guys, as I read this article. Think about what the other article I just read to you about him, Zaslav, having um, the profitability margin by 2025. Keep that in mind. By the way, it was $1 billion by 2025. That left Warner Brothers in one of the worst rock and a hard place conundrums in recent memory. In 2023, its slate of DC films are now orphaned by a morbid cinematic universe, but their studio needs audiences to go see them in a blockbuster scale. It's perhaps unavoidable, but terrible timing of it, says a source for the rival studio. Audiences don't feel like they have to invest 2 hours of their life because it doesn't matter going forward. And it's so true. If you know that this was supposed to be a reset, why am I going to go watch this movie? Okay. Things indeed have not been going well. The production budgets and likely marketing spending for these four films cost between 1.1 and 1.2 billion dollars in total, according to experts outside the studio. But Shazam 2 has already bombed, earning 133 a feeble. Listen to this, guys. $133 million global, not domestic, not internationally, globally. That's what Guardians of the Galaxy almost earned in one weekend. That's what Ant Man almost earned in 1 week. Ant Man earned 108. So you take the combined Ant Man and in the Flash, and it's a little bit more than that globally. The Flash just opened a mere $55 million in the United States and Canada, grossing 135 million as of June 19th. Think about this, guys. Think about this. Okay. This film here, okay, actually grossed more in one weekend than Shazam did globally, worldwide. Think about that. That's huge. So, well under expectations, and needs to do a lot to break even. That movie should have been at least $120 million domestic, says an industry veteran who's worked on many major campaigns. This is an unmitigated disaster. Of course, the spokesperson for Warner's declined to comment. The Flash rollout has faced unprecedented difficulties, which, by the way, are not all their fault. It's not all Warner's fault here. Okay, you had Ezra Miller, who'd been out of the public eye since August when they apologized. Okay, and they came in and said part of the statement said, "quote I'm sorry that I've alarmed everyone and upset with my previous behavior, including that included multiple allegations of misconduct, assault, and abuse, citing quote complex mental health issues end quote, pulling a Christopher Plummer. So anybody who's not familiar with Christopher Plummer, with All the Money in the World, okay, so Christopher Plummer. So this goes back to that film 3-4 years ago. It was called All the Money in the World, and it was about J. Paul Getty. And Kevin Spacey, before all these allegations broke, was supposed to actually play J. Paul Getty. And of course, when the allegations broke, then what they did was they took him right off the film. Now, at the time, they needed somebody else to come in. So who came in? Christopher Plummer. It's sad that his name is actually being used as being calling quote pulling Christopher Plummer. So replacing Ezra was a non-starter for Warner's. So he played two versions of himself, but it goes on to basically talk about the allegations. So I'm going to read a little bit more here. To compensate the absence of the problematic lead, Warner's heavily relied on TV spots during the NBA Finals and director Andy Muschietti doing multiple interviews, unreservedly praising Miller. Well, of course, what is he going to say? He was horrible? Oh, yeah, my lead was terrible. Of course, he's not going to say that. That's like Gunn. In January, Gunn came out and called it, quote, one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen, end quote. Warner Brothers Discovery David Zaslav didn't bother hyping The Flash as, quote, the best superhero movie outright at CinemaCon in April. What do you think he's going to say? I don't understand. Now, Gunn, I get it. A, he wants to make his boss happy, but B, more importantly, this is his new home. Okay, he wants to do something to help out and everything else. This is not, and I've said it before, this is not his fault. Okay. When they called it the greatest superhero movie ever, if that's not correct, you're setting yourself up to fail, said an executive of a rival studio. In this environment, it's better to under promise and over deliver. Okay, so here, and I don't have the chart, so bear with me, but for the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, okay, this is what is. So I have a chart in front of me for domestic um, debuts, international gross, and then all time. So the Flash made 55 million. Okay, it made 74.5 million, and then obviously what that was. Shazam only opened to $30 million. Okay, it it made twice as much overseas, and so it made 27.5 million from streaming. Now, Black Adam, which was supposed to be huge, did pretty good at 67 million and made quite a bit overseas at 225 million. Okay, the Batman is the last major movie they had, opening at 134 million dollars. Okay, blowing up for 400 million dollars overseas. And by the way, it ended with 770. Okay, they've only had. So I mean, I'm not going to go. I will link this into the description, and this goes on to say there's a bunch of numbers and everything else, and you guys can read it. But here's what I want to get at. Number one, Warner's is in trouble. They are in big, big trouble. So now this is the slate, okay? This is what this is the slate that James Gunn really talked about and everything else. Now, I don't blame, once again, I said this before, I don't blame Gunn for what happened because I wasn't under his regime. Okay. So you had Shazam come out in March. Okay. That busted terribly. We've had The Flash come out and bust terribly. Okay. We've got Blue Beetle, who was supposed to be the first major character of this new universe. We'll see how that does. And then we have Aquaman at the end of the year. Aquaman right now, for all everything I've heard and everything else, is a mess, and they don't know what they're going to do with it. Okay. So moving on. So that's the universe reset. We're halfway home with this, and we can already. The Flash is going to be Blue Beetle is probably going to be a predictor for the Flash. Okay. So, and by the way, guys, we're only talking a couple months away. This isn't like it's a, you know, October or December. Really, this is August 18th. There's only two things that's coming out really in August. Yeah, you have Gran Turismo, but that's really cookie cutter. But TMNT and Blue Beetle. Okay. This is what Gunn wants to do. Okay. So you have Creature Commandos. Now, mind you, this is not in any order. Okay. So he has anybody who watched that 8.5 minute video, okay, knows the whole pretty much the thing. But so you've had Creature Commandos, which is going to be animated. You've got Brave and the Bold, which we right now know that Muschietti is going to actually be directing, which is worrisome, okay? Because look what happened with Flash. Now, that wasn't all his fault, but still, okay? And I've said it before, he has this Welcome to Derry prequel coming out. I think, what is he going to do when one is, you know, um, yeah, it just looks very worrisome. Okay. So then, okay, you have Superman Legacy, which is going to be hitting theaters right now, and these are all due to change. July 15th of 2025. Now, remember what I said earlier, guys. Zaslav wants to have $1 billion in profit by 2025. That's why he's cutting all of this stuff. Don't be shocked if you see the Flash on streaming, okay, by the end of the month, because he needs to eat money up. He needs to get this stuff eaten up like Batman, okay? You have the new Supergirl movie, World of Tomorrow. World of Tomorrow. I hope Sasha Calle comes back. That would be the best thing that could ever happen at this point. Okay. You've got the Authority. Okay, and then you have Swamp Thing. That's just in that first set of films. Okay. I think people are going to probably forget about what happened with the Flash and Brave and the Bold, depending on what happened. It's going to, be interesting. So next year, of course, you've had the Joker come out, which is $1 billion film. Okay. Which, by the way, there have been so many different iterations of Joker, they didn't know what was going to happen. Okay. So that was a happy accident for them. So Joker opened to Joker did quite well. It opened to $96.2 million. Let's face it, Joaquin Phoenix, he's a 2-time Academy Award Best Actor, but he isn't really like a Leonardo DiCaprio or, one of those big guys, okay? He's a more serious type. I mean, this Joker 2 is going to be the first sequel he's ever done in his career, okay? It made almost $740 million overseas. That's huge. Huge. It went on to gross $1.1 billion. And even after it was released, it made another $240 million when it was out. So that there's something to be said there. Okay. So you have Joker, okay? And of course the Batman, which I was talking about earlier as far as the numbers were concerned, that made 770 worldwide, okay? That made 139 139 opening weekend. Now let's move forward. So we have the new Joker movie that's coming out later on next year. Okay, that's going to be big. Okay, uh, we've seen photographs from the set. It's going to be interesting because, as I said, this is the first sequel that Joaquin's ever done. This is going to be like a musical type of thing, and you have Lady Gaga coming back, or not coming back, coming into the fold. Now, of course, she was huge in A Star Is Born. She was okay in House of Gucci, but she's really starting to get her chops. Okay, she won her Oscar for Shallow. That was a given. Okay, but that's interesting. The Batman Part Two, and this is what you were talking about, Dad. Okay, so I'd love to see that report of who, you know, who it was that actually wrote the story. So you got the Batman 2 coming out, okay? And that's going to be the continuation of Matt Reeves' vision, okay? What do they do? Where are they going to go? How are they going to do it? Um, and then, of course, you have the animated Teen Titans Go, and then another Superman movie. Look, at the end of the day, they need to make a lot of money. Now, I personally believe I don't think Joker 2 is going to make $1 billion. I just don't. Because of, even if it is a musical, even if you are putting one of the biggest names in there in Lady Gaga, they don't want to see that. That's just me personally. I could be totally wrong about that. I could be eating my words later on this year. Okay. Batman 2. Matt Reeves is, they're working on right now. I would be shocked. Okay. I would be shocked. And by the way, the reason why I don't think they would put Pascal in there is because they're used to Robert Pattinson. The last thing you want to do is upset things any more than they have to be. Okay. Um, I think what you will see is a hell of a lot more of Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne than Batman. Okay. I think that this is going to set up something to where the third Batman film is going to be a culmination film. So you're going to have Riddler and Joker, and maybe, depending on if, you know, um, Barry Keoghan comes back and everything else. Um, okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. He'll be the Batman Brave and the okay, Brave and the Bold. Got it. Got it. Okay. And that's another thing too, guys. Okay? Let's call a spade a spade. When you're looking at this slate, people will say, well, they already have a Batman. They might get confused. So why are you doing two different Batman? Very good. Okay, that's see, that clarifies things. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, maybe. I mean, it depends on what now, I'm not too familiar with the story, but it's going to be based on the comics and everything else. All that being said, they are in a world of. At the end of the day, the moral of the story is this: they are in a world of hurt. Okay, and the piece goes back, and one of the insiders was talking. Why am I going to invest 2 hours in my life when I know it just isn't going to matter? Everything is going to start and end with Superman Legacy. Plain and simple. I think it will do well because it is Superman. No matter who they cast, it's got to knock this. And this is what I hate sounding like a broken record. This is why James Gunn is doing this himself, because he doesn't want anybody to screw this up. I think he wants to try and get through this year and move forward. That is what I think. And if Superman is as good as everybody thinks it can be, then you have Brave and the Bold. Okay. Then you have Joker. Then you have Batman. Okay, now we're starting to pick up some momentum. But remember, guys, Zaslav said he wanted $1 billion profit by the end of 2025. That isn't going to happen. They're slashing and burning right now, big time. Anyways, what do you guys think about this $1 billion problem that Warner Brothers has right now? Do you think Blue Beetle is going to be any good? Do you think it's going to make any money? Or are you going to go see it in theaters? Or are you going to wait till it comes out on streaming from a few months from now? Are you guys going to go see Aquaman? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'm going to get back to everybody.